I'm Stu Shannon, and welcome to another episode of The Wandering Bushman. Now, my son Orin, who's 5 years old, has begged me to be in one of my videos, and so today we're going to make a video of a simple snare trap with a spring pull. And Orin has very generously volunteered Jerry the wallaby to be our example animal that gets caught in our trap. Now, just a little warning before we make this video, guys. It is illegal to make improvised traps in Australia, and almost all native Australian species are protected by law. So what we're teaching you today would be used only in a survival situation. So me and Orin, we're going to get this trap set up. The first thing you need to do is you need to find yourself 2 sticks, okay? One about 1 foot long and one about 5 or 6 inches long. That is going to be the start of our spring snare trap. So I'm going to get these carved up into shape and we'll show you what we're going to do with them. Okay guys, the first part of our snare is ready. This is our long stake. You want to make sure this is about at least 1 foot long, because that's going to be driven into the ground with about that much sitting above the surface. And you want enough of it in the ground so that it can hold down the springy sapling that we're going to be using as our spring mechanism. So just that, a little 7-notch cut out of it is good. You don't want it to be too deep because you want this to really be a hairline trigger. So you can manipulate that a little bit as you go, but just start out with a point on the end of your stake, a little 7-notch near the top, a round off the end. We're going to beat that into the ground underneath one of our saplings that we have just near a game trail that we've got over here. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to shape our smaller stick to fit into the notch on our stake that I just showed you. I'll get this ready and then we'll show you what it looks like. Okay guys, this is the piece that you want to make out of your small piece. So we've got a little ridge there, we've got an angle, and you'll see that on the top half of our stake where we've got the 7-notch, that's going to fit up this way in our 7-notch, okay? And then that's going to form the trigger mechanism of our snare trap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this sapling here as our spring. What I want to do is I want to clean up all the leaves and all of the branches off this that we don't need for our spring. So I'm going to clean all those up first, and then I'll show you how we're going to set up our stake. Okay, so our spring snare is ready. What I'm going to do is I'm going to arch that over our entrance to our game trail. All the pieces that I cut off that spring snare, I'm going to set up a little channel so that it's the only place that's comfortable for our game to run through. So I'll set up a little channel, I'll bend this over where that kind of meets above the ground. That's going to be the spot where I'll put our stake in. Okay guys, so you can see I've got my spring here in one hand. What I'm going to do is I'm going to place this stake directly underneath where that spring wants to naturally come down. So that's basically where I'm going to whack him in. Let's get that going. So you really want it in deep enough so that the spring snare is not going to pull out this ground stake, and that's probably good enough there. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach some cordage around our little trigger piece here, and that's going to then attach onto our spring, and then we'll be ready to set up the snare noose. I've now got our small piece attached to my spring up the top, and it is quite a strong spring. But remember, you only want this little bit grabbing onto this ridge by a hairline. So it doesn't have to grab on by much. You just want to make sure that it's holding. And that's good. Now we can set up the rest of the trap. For the knots I'm going to use for the actual snare part of the trap, on one end I'm going to tie an overhand knot on a bite, which I've shown in my knots video. Overhand knot on a bite. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to form that into a lasso by just feeding it back over the rope itself, and that's going to attach onto our spring. And on the other end, I'm going to tie what's called a poacher's knot, and that's going to be the part that our little friend's head is going to go through. Okay, that's it. It's ready to go. Let's tie it on to our spring setup, and then we're going to show you how this trap works. Orin is going to do the honors of leading his poor little wallaby into our little snare trap. All right, that is a hairline trap. I'm just a bit worried about that trap hitting my son in the face. So I might have to do the next part, I'm afraid, Orin. But you can lead him all the way up to the trap. All right, so our unsuspecting wallaby is on his way over to the trap. He doesn't even see it there. Sticks his head through the snare, and even if he makes the slightest bit of tug on that snare, he's hung himself up in the tree.
Thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe our channel.